think you're quite correct, because until you stop seeing them purely for economic exploitation, I mean, in the case of Ragnhild, there's no economic reason to cut off their horns. It's based on myths. It's still, abalone is still a delicacy, so it's like caviar. You always have a market for it. But I mean, the exploitation of rhino horn for economic purposes is just based on such bizarre views on animal rights. Protecting animals when they don't have any economic value to the market.
But South African government's granted permits for sporting reasons.
Yeah.
So it's in the trophy hunting industry. It brings in money.
That's right. So
it's all,
there's no notion of animal right there at all.
No.
And in actual fact, it puts it on the continuum, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From there, for me to shoot one legally, on that continuum for somebody to kill dozens for the illegal market, and the government's complicit in that whole.
Is it something that we should address in the same way that you would think about the kind of problems of addressing inequalities and injustice by only focusing on for human beings, on human rights? And something to do with our ideological shift that's needed, which would move kind of discourses from talking about individuals or interdependence to respecting autonomy, relative autonomy of other human beings and other animals, other species. Something that would introduce the same language about the way we relate as human beings, and not commodifying human beings, and not commodifying animals.
I think that it'll be a while before animals are granted rights, but I think to apply the justice perspectives and elaborate and develop the justice perspectives in individual justice versus species justice, ecological justice, environmental justice. These concepts that Rob White has used, but I think still not very much elaborated and discussed. I think we need to fill these concepts with more content. For example, when he talks about species justice, it would apply that a species would survive. But and one way to do that is, for example, to take the few remaining individuals of a species and put it into a zoo, so to keep the species alive, and breed on them and put other individuals out in the wild again to have the species survive. But in terms of individual justice, for those few individuals who were living there in their natural habitat, to be taken away from their habitat and kept captive to be bred on, it doesn't go well with individual rights and individual justice. I think so. There are very many aspects to this that we have to survive and have to discuss. And I think definitely in terms of the CITES Convention, of course not. There's no species justice. When you can one African country can say, now we're going to shoot 50 cheetahs, but it's for game sport. So we put them from move them from appendix 1 to the appendix 2, or from 2 to 3. So that it shall be able to do this kind of sports. And I think that has nothing to do with species justice nor individual justice. And that in my view is why the CITES Convention doesn't work. That is one reason why I don't like it. The other reason is all the problems with, as I mentioned, with licit and illicit markets. Because when it is legal, there will always be ways of laundering animals and forging of documents. And for example, Norwegian customs, they didn't get the money to have a very efficient tool, which is just all the CITES registered species. This is developed in the Netherlands. Customs could buy it for 100,000 NOK, but they weren't allowed to because it was not prioritized. So they can't recognize the species when they find them in the airport in the suitcase. You know, so it's just not prioritized.
It's just an animal.
It's just an animal. Yeah.
Is there any crime syndicate behind the smuggling of animals in Norway?
In Norway, it's not. I do not think so. I do not think so. I mean, we have from Norway we have raptor birds going out, and these are. It was just recently discovered that there was a man who was caught by the police in Finland. He had like 10,000 of birds. Many were taken from Norway, and this was a ring of collectors, bird collectors. And people are taking when they come into Norway with brooding machines in their cars, which is obviously because they want to take the eggs and take them out. They take eagles and falcons and so. But you know whether when we saw these pictures of these African greys taken on the Norwegian-Swedish border, if these birds were part of the other picture that we saw here with all these the African greys in the little cage, as most African greys are taken from the wild, and we know that there are groups that, for example, in the Czech Republic, that are organized, and they do import African greys. So, but we don't know where these precise birds came from. You know, whether they are part of the same, taken by those that are taken from the same groups. But this Czech group cooperated with the Brazilian group, and there's a huge market for wild-caught birds in Eastern Europe, especially in Czechia. But we do not know. We do not know. We do not know where the reptiles come from. We do not know where the parrots come from, except that yes, we can likely assume that they are wild caught. And yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.